when I literally had a reason not to talk to anybody. Now it's just like everybody wants to be back outside again. It's annoying.
Yeah, it was acceptable to just like hide in your house and like be be chill.
Exactly.
Everybody's
You're like
dragging out.
exactly
Yeah, I prefer the old days.
the olden days of 2020.
The new old days.
Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty funny.
We're not talking about the Lakers.
The West stuff.
I don't think the West is as tough as
I don't care
it
what
once
you say.
was. Outside of Minnesota,
Hold on.
Oklahoma City,
Okay.
Denver, I'm not really like shook of any Western team whatsoever. Yeah, they'll beat up on each other, but like the days of having Dame Lillard in the West and like, you know, like all these other teams being like super good. Like the Pelicans, Zion has had one full season where he hasn't like been injured like half the season. Like the Clippers basically just blew up their squad with PG leaving. All their other pieces are older. Like convince me that the West is like significantly like dominant like it once was. Welcome to Feast or Fumble. I'm the real Kris Mac. I'm here with a couple of my nearest and dearest, Mr. Chino, Patty Putz. It's been a long time. We've been on summer vacay doing beach days. My man's got a fresh tan over there. You take your glasses off, you have like the little sunglass tan going on right now.
The raccoon.
Yep, raccoons going on. How you fellas doing?
Doing
Doing
good.
good. Yeah, enjoyed the 4th of July weekend. Ready to talk
Absolutely.
some basketball.
Some burgers, some dogs, a little sun,
Burgers,
a little beach.
Dogs, chicken, everything. All of
Everything.
it.
Everything. I even had a very nice artisan pizza with some prosciutto and some tomatoes. Yeah.
That sounds nice.
Yeah, yeah. A little fancy 4th of July for me. Ready to get into these topics. A lot's gone on since last pod, mainly NBA related. We got draft, free agency, teams making moves. Everybody's trying to retool and get ready to smash the Celtics next season. So I want to hear from you guys. What do you think? What did you like? Anything in particular, whether drafts? Let's start with the draft. Knicks were on the clock, drafted 25th, made some moves. It was the year of the French player, seems like, since we had like 5 French players go in the first round. What did you guys think of the Knicks in their draft moves this, 2 weeks ago? We'll start with Pat. Go ahead.
Yeah, right off the top, I was a little skeptical going in. I didn't really know what the Knicks were going to do. I didn't expect them to use the picks like we discussed, and I feel like their roster is getting pretty close to complete. So, what kind of pieces were they actually going to fill those holes with? And I think they did a great job. I honestly don't know much about Pacome Daddier, except for that he's got great size, great length, and from the videos that I saw, he could absolutely cut and score the basket, especially close to the basket. He's a great wing that's going to be difficult to defend. Really, really excited about that. We were texting during the draft. We were trying to debate who was our favorite point guard left in the draft, and the Knicks moved around to get Tyler Kolek, which we were extremely happy about. We think he's going to do great things in the near future. Kevin McCullough Jr., he went to Kansas, averaged 18 points a game. That's a no-brainer. I'll take that all day, every day. And then, interesting one was Ariel Huck-Porty. He is a center, a 7-footer that's played in Australia. The videos I've seen, he's very, very athletic. So that's exciting. Hopefully, he could develop enough to earn a place in the rotation. Sean, what do you got?
Yeah, I fully agree with what you're talking about here. I really feel we did a great job with thinking about the future and also building our roster today, right? We filled a lot of holes that left, except for iHeart, but we could talk more about that. But I agree. I told you the one thing that really stood out the most is the point guard pick. I've been telling y'all constantly. I said we need a backup point guard. We need a backup point guard. Like that has to happen. And we went and got somebody that I didn't think we were gonna get, but I felt like he was gonna be there available later in the draft. And Tyler Kolek, and like you just look at stats when he played in college, like 11 points per game, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. That's point guard right there. That's a backup point guard right there. He was a consensus second team All-American. He led the NCAA in assists in 2024. 23, he was a Big East Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year in 2021. Like Big East tournament most valuable player. Like he has the accolades to be exactly what we need. Because like I said, when Jalen came off the floor, who's bringing the ball up, who's coordinating the offense, and as we saw. Like we didn't have that, and I feel like we hit big with that. The other thing I would say is like everybody was talking a lot about, what we gave up to get Mikal Bridges, like all the picks. But if you really look at it, we got most of it back with all the stuff that we did. Like when we traded the I think it was the 24th pick, or whichever pick that was, we traded to the Thunder. We ended up getting like 6 second-round picks. And as I've said to multiple people, like if you're after like 15 in the draft, it's development. Like that you're not getting an impact player that late. Unless you find a nut. The squirrel finds a nut, right? But, I think after that 15th pick, it's all development. So, yeah, we got Pacom, Didiot. Like he's a solid project. He's 18 years old. And to your point, Pat, like he can do all the things that I kind of see like Mike Bridges, like a long 3-and-D guy. He can develop into that. And that's a perfect pick. Like, we don't need him to do anything right now. Let's stash him away. So, again, that's why I said future. But picks-wise, like I said, like when we traded away picks to the Thunder and got second-round picks back, which that's perfectly fine because if you look at who we drafted, we drafted all our picks in the second round. So I think we hit a home run. We got some things. We filled some holes currently. We still got some things to do, but we also cared for the future. Like we didn't just throw everything into the bag this year and say, hey, we need to win now. Forget all the next years and let's go all in. So that's my thoughts. I love what we did in the draft. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. We kind of knew that the first pick was going to get traded out. So definitely saving some cap room was of major importance for us in the draft because to your point, we basically threw our bag at OG Anunoby to get him re-signed with the team, which was definitely a needed thing to happen. Like we needed to get OG re-signed. We couldn't just let him walk. But I think our moves in the draft definitely did fill needs that we had. And to your point, Sean, definitely were more on the development end of the spectrum. I was clamoring for us, hey, we need a wing, we need more wings. We end up trading for Mikal Bridges, we re-sign OG, and then we draft Dadier, which is a development project. So we're set there, and something you've been chiming for, Sean, is to get a backup point guard, and I think Kolek definitely fits what the Knicks need. He's a senior, comes in NBA ready, and he fills pretty much exactly what we need. Somebody that's going to facilitate, move the offense when Brunson is off the floor. I've seen some of his workouts. He is a serviceable shooter as well. So if he has to play some off ball, maybe play him and Brunson together. He can get to the corners, get to the wings, and knock down some shots. So that's definitely some upside there. And as far as the Knicks getting rid of a lot of number one picks, first of all, they're all off years, so I think they're all odd year first round picks. So we're not totally out of draft stock moving forward into the future. And to your point, a lot of development, work that the Knicks have shown that we do develop our players, or we have developed our players over the last few years. Whether it's an RJ Barrett, an Emmanuel Quigley, Mitchell Robinson, Miles McBride, all guys that we drafted, all guys that have like had flashes and have had very stellar performances throughout their tenure with the Knicks. So getting a guy like Dottier, who is probably not going to see a lot of minutes, but again, 6'8", 18 years old, can shoot, and basically is like an uncut gem that we can kind of like mold to fit into, whatever we want him to be moving forward into the future, whether it's, potential role player for this team, the future face of a team, or even a trade bait later on for another piece. I think the Knicks have shown and the Leon regime has shown that like we can find talent late rounds in the draft and kind of make the most out of what we acquire. So I'm fairly happy with what we did. We didn't do anything super splashy, but we're definitely like carving out the pieces of what we need to have like a contending team moving forward. We kind of touched on it a little bit. Didn't really get too deep into it, but we also had the Mikal Bridges trade and the OG Anunoby signing. We didn't talk about that last pod. What did you guys think about, some of those moves and maybe some of the other moves we made into like free agency? Sean, what were your initial thoughts on the OG signing first and foremost?
Oh, I told you we couldn't let him leave. Like that point blank period. And yeah, I feel like there's been some noise out there that we overpaid. Just look at the numbers. Like when he's on the court, we win games. Our efficiency is better on both sides of the floor. We talked about that before, right? He has an impact, even though he's not a scorer, but he has an impact on the offensive side of the ball, and also on the defensive side of the ball, obviously. And he's guarding the best player on the other team. And he can play the 3 or the 4. So depending on who we match up against, we're in good space. So like, yeah, if we play the Celtics, yeah, he can guard Jason Tatum. He can move with Jason Tatum. And yeah, if he has to, he'll have to guard a Siakam type player, like a bigger 4 that has some weight to him. So again, I think OG was something that was number one priority. It had to happen, and then everything else fell. Dominoes fell after that. So yeah, I love the OG re-signing. We needed it. Top priority. What do you think, Pat?
Yeah, totally agree. Such an obvious difference maker when he's on the court. You watch them during the playoffs, and when he was hurt, they looked like a completely different team. They looked a little lost. You're right. He could guard 4 positions probably. I wouldn't be surprised next year we see Tyrese Maxey and all of a sudden OG is guarding him. So it's just, yeah, he's a special player, especially on the defensive end. I think we've only seen the tip of the iceberg, what he could do offensively, because he's not needed to do that kind of stuff. As the roster continues to get better and better, his role kind of gets smaller and smaller, and he's able to do things he's excellent at. Let Julius Randle come in and score 20, 25 points. OG doesn't have to do that. But the big thing, Michael Bridges trade, love it, love it. The Nova boys all back together. You're starting to see all these like college team camaraderies trying to group them all together because you have such chemistry when they play together, which is going to be really fun to watch this year. And you guys both brought up great points about the draft. We gave up a lot. We just saw Leon Rose like maneuver around the entire draft to get Tyler Kolek because that's who we wanted. We could get those assets back. It's all good. But yeah, I really am excited to see how the roster is developing, and I think we're almost there with the complete roster. I just think we need another big, certainly. I think Mitch's injury history is a little concerning. We haven't touched on that much yet, but last year played 31 games. 2023, 59 games. 2022, 72, which is excellent, but 2021, 31 games. We need a big that's reliable to come in for iHeart, so I'm just very interested to see what we do about that. Kris, what do you think?
Yeah, the OG signing, considering what we had to give up to trade for him last season, we had to get that deal done. Did we overpay? I don't know. Seemingly that's kind of like the nature of the NBA right now, is like you're paying for wing depth. Like the best, most marquee players are all wing players. And when you have a guy who, like you said, affects both the offense and defensive ends of the ball, I think his net rating was all positive every game he played in. We can go back to the 20-3 record with him on the court with Jalen Brunson. Like it was a no brainer. We had to like re-sign the guy. The injury bug is kind of like a concern with him. But they were all like kind of fluky injuries, like the elbow and then hamstring in the playoffs. That could have happened to anybody. So I'm really happy that we were able to get that deal done. The Bridges trade kind of came out of nowhere for me. Like I knew that there was like talks about trading for Bridges. But I had always thought if we were going to trade for him, Randall would have to be like in the deal somehow. The fact that we were able to get him, again, having to give up a lot of our draft assets to get him, and we still have Randall on the team, and we were able to sign OG. I mean, I literally was like floored, sitting against my couch, like, oh my God, we're gonna go to the finals. Like I was that hyped because we're trading up, potential future draft assets for a guy who is a legitimate 3-and-D wing that has size to guard, just like OG, maybe 4 positions on the court. So like stacking them both together and already having like the defensive prowess that we have on our team, like who's gonna score on opposing offenses? Like we can literally match up with anybody. So I'm super happy at like where we are as far as like the starting 5. But yeah, I think I echo a lot of your guys' sentiments. We do need some help as far as the 5 spot goes. Losing iHeart was not it was kind of like the nature of doing business. Like we're not going to be able to re-sign everybody. Pat, what were your thoughts on iHeart basically taking the bag and going to Oklahoma City?
As much as I hated it as a Knicks fan, I totally respect it. You got to do what you got to do. The guy had a great year. You have to take opportunity when it's hot, and he absolutely got it. He was among the first deals, I think, that were made during free agency, and he got a ton of money. I'm interested to see whether or not this Tom Thibodeau effect works on the other bigs on the Knicks roster, whether or not, iHeart truly was a special player, or if this is like a Thibodeau kind of big. I'm disappointed in iHeart in another jersey, but I'm focused on the Knicks. I do think we need a little bit more over there. He's going to play great. OKC is a serious threat in the Western Conference. They were first in the conference, and they just got Alex Caruso and iHeart to a team that was already super solid. So they're going to be dangerous. Sean, what were your thoughts?
Same sentiments. Like, did we want to lose him? No. Was he number one priority? No. Are we gonna have to figure something out? Yeah, and I think going into this offseason, we knew that. And Chris, you hit the nail on the head. Like, we can't sign everybody. Like, we can't keep everybody. Would have been great, like we talked about jokingly, like, let's run it back, keep the same exact team. But like I said about the draft, we got to think about the future too. Like, we can't, like, yeah, it's all well and good to just throw all our eggs in one basket and then just shoot our shot. But then what are we going to do if it doesn't work? Like, what are we going to do next year, the year after that? So, yeah, it had to happen. I will say 2 things. One, going back to the Bridges thing, like, OG, if hypothetically he ever gets hurt, like, that's why we got Mikal Bridges. Like, he can play the 2 and the 3. Where when OG left, it was like, all right, now we got to depend on Josh Hart to be a starter, which offensively we know that Josh Hart's not that. Mikal Bridges is that. Like, he can come on, score 20 points a game, shoot 37% from 3. Like, he can be that guy. So I think we solidified that piece. But from a big perspective, I'm really interested to see what happens with Bates Diop. That's the additional player that we got from the Nets, because we had to add in, I think we added in Shake Milton and let them sign and trade him. And then we took Bates Diop, which Bates Diop, I saw some news about when Tibbs was in Chicago, he wanted Bates Diop, right? So Bates Diop's a small forward, power forward, can bang, can get boards, can play defense, can actually shoot the 3 as well. So that replaces Precious. But then in the draft, and I said this to you, Pat, like Huck Porty, like, can he replace iHeart's output? This pick and roll guy, 22 years old, 7 foot, 245, can bang, can move. So is that the approach we took, like drafting him just in case we don't find a replacement for iHeart? Because at the end of the day, again, I'm just thinking like future, like do we have a replacement for him right now?
Yeah,
maybe not.
I have a point there. Like, I don't necessarily think we're gonna replace exactly what iHeart brought to the team. Any center like put in the right opportunity can grab 20 boards. Okay, but iHeart definitely did have like some court vision that I think is a little undersold. It was a really good passer for a big man. And was really good in the pick and roll with Jalen Brunson. So I think we might get 60% of what iHeart was, but it's definitely going to be. We're not going to get like everything. So what's going to be more important? Have somebody that's a rim runner that's going to work well in the pick and roll. Someone who's going to be back to the basket, shot blocker, rebounder. Or are we looking for an extra facilitator? Because I think between Brunson, Kolek, Randall, who can also like facilitate a little bit, we do have guys that can like do stuff without the ball. Mikal Bridges can do a little bit without the ball too. So what is like most important here?
Listen, I think to that point. Again, I don't think we're going to replace him to, like what you said, you make a good point. We're not replacing him completely. Mm-hmm. But we brought in some pieces that today and into the future could be big. Mm-hmm. Like I said, Bates Diop, he's a great role player. That's what he replaces Precious, because like that was the replacement. Like when our IR had to come off the floor, we had to go small, and then we had to bring in Precious, and he had to play the 5. But now we don't have to do that. And we have players that can kind of fill that in, and I think Bates Diop can be that. He's 6'8", can play the 3 or the 4. But I really like to see what happens with Huck Porty. Like, he's a big. He has international experience. Like, it's not like he's a rookie. Like, he's not like a project. Like, I think he's gonna actually come in and play some minutes because he has some international experience, and he can do some of the things that I can do. We just got to see it at the NBA level. Because I think he can move, he's screen and roll, he's there for the lob, he's offensive, he can bang on the offensive side of the glass. Like, I think we have some pieces for the future just in case we don't get more. And yeah, obviously off-season wise, we still got time. There's still other moves could happen today, right? We could still see some other moves happen. So we have a lot of options. What do you think, Pat?
Yeah, I'm totally with you guys, and you guys both bring up a great point. Like, it's not necessarily this iHeart mold. It's going to come from so many different other areas. It's going to be this committee approach rather than having another big. That's Isaiah Hartenstein. Jericho Sims is in the gym. He's working extremely hard right now. Seen videos of the jumper, his back to the basket. He's getting better and better every day. That's great. Julius Randle is a superstar that we didn't have for a whole year last year that is somehow going to come in and, score a lot of points, bring in a bunch of rebounds, and that's going to change the roster and just the starting 5 and the rotation so much that I'm interested to see what he could bring to the table. You stick him at the 5 and the starting 5 looks really different and can really score the basketball. So I just like that the Knicks could go a lot of different directions, and they have this almost like chameleon-like roster and rotation that they could go a lot of different directions depending on the teams that they face, and that's just really exciting.
Mm-hmm. Dude, and listen, you make a good point. Now I totally forgot about that. We talked about that. Randall can run everything that IR did last season. Randall can do the same exact thing or better.
Yeah, for sure.
So to that point, if we have him at the 4 and then Mitch at the 5, now Mitch doesn't have to set that high screen and roll. Mitch can stay near the basket where, when that pick and roll happens, you could dump it off. That's easy points right there. So I think we might be in a better space, to be honest with you, with Randall obviously coming back. Like, people forget that for most of the like half of the season we didn't have him. So you add him in, he could do everything IR does. Obviously, he's not gonna rebound as well, but that's what Mitch's will be there, and then there'll be less pressure on Mitch to have to do things on the offensive side and just be that defensive center.
Absolutely. And the thing is, like, you know, it's popular now to like just have a bunch of, you know, hate on the Knicks and like say like, oh well, they don't have enough and they're not going to contend. Like, you know, Draymond Green's takes on like the Knicks is just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, everyone seems to discount the fact that we had a guy who was a 12 and 5 22 12 and 5 player that literally we didn't have for half of the season. Another guy who can draw double teams. Another guy who can set up shots for other players. Oh, and by the way, can bully ball anybody in the NBA and get his buckets. Like, we're just gonna like forget about the fact that Julius Randle was a top 20 player in the NBA. Like, so the big thing for me is like there's gonna have to be some deferment because there's only one basketball, and now there's all these guys that can potentially score the basketball. Whether it's Bridges, OG can score the ball, especially like from the corners. Brunson, we know, is Captain Clutch, especially in the fourth quarter. So I'm interested to see how it all like kind of cohesively goes together, because last season when they were together, Brunson, Randall, and OG all together, 14-2. So, and they were literally shutting down some of the best offenses in the NBA and outscoring teams by like 15, 20 points. So I think that is going to be the biggest thing that needs to get kind of worked out. But I mean, I got faith in Tibbs. I got faith in our guys. I think it'll come together pretty nicely.
100%.
Super excited. One question for you guys. The Tyler Kolek pick, excuse me, and we have Deuce McBride, obviously. Is that enough at point guard behind JB?
1,000%. 1,000%. Because obviously Jalen's still going to play his minutes. It's not like we're going to take minutes away, but like those periods of time, like he could be that guy. I think, and Chris, we talked about this, I think for Deuce, this is now going to allow Deuce should not be handling the rock. He needs to be a spot-up guy, just like DiVincenzo, spot-up guy, shoot the ball, or drive to the rack. That's it. Like, we don't need you bringing the ball up. So now you think about it, we got a guy that we can develop. He's developed to be the backup point guard. Deuce, just focus on shooting. Just focus on mastering that part of your game. Less pressure. Less pressure, because we saw what happened when pressure hit them both, him and DiVincenzo, when Brunson's out of the game. Like I told y'all, like when he's out the game, they're both forced to have to bring up the ball. And when they didn't do it, it was like, all right, Josh, you got to bring up the ball, which that's not that pretty either. So
not at all.
It just helps us. It just makes us more dynamic. I told y'all I really like that pick. Like, that's huge pick. And again, it reminds me of what the Pacers had in TJ McConnell. Like, come off the bench, let Tyrese take a breather, and you can score 10 points, give us 5 assists, and then Brunson comes back in.
Yeah, he's got like that intramural game. Like, oh, I'm like 40 years old and I'm just gonna like rebound, put backs, like little nagging defensive plays, like get in your face, So yeah, I mean, it's yet to be seen if Kolek is that type of player, but seemingly it's the same kind of mold. And to your point, Sean, I do think everybody with like getting everybody back healthy and the trades that we've made, get guys back in like their natural roles. Like DiVincenzo is a gunner. Like he's gonna come out. We want him, coming off screens, spotting up, shooting threes. We don't want him, not too much driving to the basket, not have to like do too much like off the dribble. Same thing with Deuce. Deuce showed that, he's still developing as a quote unquote traditional point guard. So like, handling the rock, bringing the ball up, initiating the offense, that's not really like his strong suit. Getting him back to where he can be a spot up shooter and focus on most of his energy on the defensive end, because he had a lot of takeaways, he had a lot of fast breaks off of turnovers, and just being the guy that can knock down shots. I think that is more of the role that he needs to be in, and building out kind of like that second unit. What do you guys feel like we need to do, like bench wise, to kind of solidify? Because everybody's not going to be able to get as many minutes as they had last season due to injury. What do you think we need in the second unit to kind of like solidify that and kind of like balance out the roster? Pat, what are your thoughts?
I know we touched on it a little bit. I still think we need another athletic big. I do. I touched on the Mitch Robinson injury history. He's solid on the defensive end. Would like a little bit more offensively, of course, but I just want another big body. I still think that Joel Embiid is one of the most dangerous players in the NBA, and we are going to have to see him at some point next year. So I just want to throw as many bodies as possible at him. They just cut Paul Reed to sign Caleb Martin. So that was an interesting body. And then I know he's a little bit handicapped at the defensive end, but JaVale McGee could score the basketball. He could run the pick and roll. So somebody like that on like a veteran minimum or like a huge discount contract towards the end of free agency, I would love to see. But other than that, I really think we're super close to having a really, really good, complete roster and having every piece that we need. We discussed the backup point guard piece. I wouldn't mind seeing them go after like a Luke Kennard or a Tyus Jones, even though they're probably going to be a little too expensive for the Knicks' current salary cap restrictions. But I do think that we could use one more veteran body, whether it's backup point guard or a big. What do you got, Sean?
Yeah, I think the missing piece is definitely a center today. Like if we needed somebody today, because obviously, like I touched on a lot of like the potential of what we drafted, and the potential of Diop coming over with Michael. Be honest, I saw some rumors about maybe trading for Brook Lopez from Milwaukee. That could be a good move. But I know they're looking for a first round pick. And I don't know if we're going to be giving that up for a 36-year-old center that may or may not play. But I think a big that's going to be the move. And it's going to have to come with somebody that it's going to be a discount. So yeah, I honestly think we're in a really good space. I'm very optimistic. I'd be perfectly fine if we did nothing else right now.
If you had to move somebody, who would you move to shore up like the second unit?
We'd have to give up potential. So like Sims, we'd have to give that up. And I know that's still like that's a development piece. That's somebody that we're developing that could possibly turn into something, but that would have to be it. We'd have to trade a development piece. And to be honest, it's Sims right now, because if you look at our roster, we don't really have that much because we didn't re-sign a lot of people. We drafted players that we're going to put on the roster, and we added 2 players in the Michael Bridges trade. So, like, numbers-wise, there's not that much space to do anything right now. So it'd have to be trading a development piece or trading a bunch of draft picks. Which I said, if we went for Lopez or went for a center that's already signed, give up a pick to do that. But do we really want to do, like, I don't know what Leon's thinking. Like, does he really want to trade more picks to get a player that's not going to be a starter? He's going to be a backup to Mitch. I don't know. Like I said, I am perfectly fine if we did nothing else right now.
Okay.
I wouldn't be mad at all, because bench-wise, as we all know, Tibbs's approach is not everybody's going to play, and with the OG re-signing and the trade for Michael, DiVincenzo and Harder, that's two spots on the bench. Then you got Deuce, that's 3. Then you got Kolick, that's 4. Where else are we going here?
All guards under 6'5".
Sims, yeah.
Yeah. But again, it's what Bates Diop's going to be on the roster. Rumor is Tibbs liked him earlier in his career, wanted him on the team. Now he's part of this trade and he's here. We're not going to just release him. So that's a spot there. That brings us to 10. Mm-hmm. Then draft wise, outside of Kolick, we signed Pycom and we signed Huckporty. So they're here.
Yeah.
So then that's 12. Where else we going? We still got Sims on the roster. That's 13.
I mean, it's feasible that those guys get sent down to G League. So I mean, yeah, they're roster
with Pycom. Yeah, 100% Pycom will be in the G League. He's 18 years old. He needs that's 100% project for the future. Mm-hmm. So I don't think. Yeah, to your point, I don't. He's probably going to G League. Mm-hmm. But what if he goes to G League and he kills it?
Oh, he'll get brought back up really fast.
Then what? So I'm actually pulling. I want to look at our current roster right now. Who's signed? Because I think I just said it. I'm at like 12.
Yeah.
Right now.
And we already know that Tibbs likes to run that 9-man rotation anyway. So we'll. It's even going to get less than that.
Hold on. Bringing up the roster now.
I got it as of the 6th.
Yeah, we got 15 people on the roster right now.
Yeah.
So we don't got much flexibility. Like, again, it'd have to be. Now I'm thinking about it. It would have to be trading picks and a player to get another player.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I could see it being, since size is an issue. It might be Deuce. He's potentially on the block as well. But yeah, Deuce or Sims, I think, would probably be like the two guys that were expendable at this point. Because none of the Nova guys are going anywhere. Yeah. So, little slight pivot. We're in the midst of like free agency, as we've been talking about. A lot of teams making moves. Anything surprising you guys? Any teams that stand out to you as like, okay, they're potential movers that are maybe playoff bounds that weren't so before. Give me some interesting things that you've seen in free agency. Pat, start off with you.
Okay. There's a few things. Last night, DeMar DeRozan got traded to the Kings. I don't know if you guys saw that, but that's a huge trade. The Kings are in really good position. They have a solid core. Really, really strong talent over there with Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. DeMar DeRozan brings them somebody that could score on his own, can shoot the basketball from anywhere on the court. So that was a really, really interesting move. We talked about Oklahoma City Thunder. I think they only got stronger with their extremely young, talented core. They're going to be dangerous next year. The West is just scary as hell right now, kind of. The other intriguing move have been the moves by the 76ers, who have been making a lot of splashes in free agency. Bringing back Kelly Oubre, obviously PG. They just signed Caleb Martin. A lot of talented wings over there. They're kind of following the Celtics' vision for a roster a little bit and trying to beat the best, just like the Knicks, I guess. But they're a talented team. It'll all depend on Embiid's health, in my opinion. But like we discussed, we think that we will probably see them at some point in the playoffs next year. But aside from that, just really excited about the Knicks moves because I think they probably had the best offseason in the NBA. Sean, what do you got?
Yeah, a couple teams really did some things, especially our crosstown, or not crosstown, but like cross-state rival in the sense of the Sixers. Like, yeah, just looking at what they did, they solidified their roster. They re-signed their Maxey, their future. They traded for Paul George. That's their big three. I'll say it again. If I was a Sixers fan, I'd still be fearful that Embiid and PG can't play an entire season, let alone playoffs. But on paper, yeah, you signed up a backup center, which I've always said the Sixers struggled with that because when Embiid gets hurt, you don't have anybody to step in, and they should have never let Andre Drummond leave the first time, and they bring him back on a 2-year deal. Again, you trade for Paul George. Sleeper like signing is nobody's talking about Eric Gordon. So you basically replace Buddy Hield with Eric Gordon, a veteran that can do the same thing, not at the level of efficiency that Hield had the potential to do, but you bring in a veteran guard that can handle the rock, that can score off the dribble, that can shoot the three. And then I told y'all when we were talking about free agency, like that Caleb Martin signing is big. Like, he can play 1 through 4. He's gritty. He's gonna do everything, and he has playoff experience. And that kind of replaces what they lost. Like they lost Batum, they lost Bamba, they lost Hield. So their roster's looking, again, on paper, they're gonna be tough. They're not gonna be better than us, but they're gonna be tough. I also look at the Magic. Like we talked about the potential of the Magic last year. At the end of the season, we were like, man, the Magic are actually moving up the board. Like they're actually playing very well. And what they did is, it may not seem like a big deal, but they basically re-signed who they needed to re-sign in Gary Harris and both the Wagners. But they went and got Caldwell Pope, veteran 3 guy that has a championship, is going to bring that in, and he replaces Joe Ingles. So you bring a guy that can shoot, that can play defense, veteran leadership to a young team that is actually really good. So the Magic got better. You touched on the Thunder. Thunder are solid as well. Obviously, it depends on. I guess they're gonna go with like the Twin Towers look with Ihart playing the center. Is that they're gonna be their move? I don't know, but they were the number 1 seed, and they added 2 guys that are gonna come in and make impact immediately. And then the last thing that really stood out to me is the Pelicans getting Murray. Like trading to get Murray. You get a guy that can score, which they struggled with that in the playoffs. It was just CJ. They struggled with that, and now you get a guy that can score. The Pelicans have potential too. That was the other piece the last piece I liked. But I would love to. I'd be curious to see what they do with Valanciunas. Like Valanciunas left. Now who's going to play center? So, I don't know. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, those are some good ones. Definitely DeJounte Murray going to New Orleans was a big move. To your point, fills in a lot of gaps for them. Guy that can score and is probably one of the best facilitators in the NBA. And he was just kind of log jammed. Him and Trae Young really didn't like. The pieces just didn't fit together, and they were kind of overlapping. Murray needs like a situation where he has the ball in his hands and he's the one making the decisions. And I think that actually is something that the Pelicans also needed, is someone to run their offense, not just kind of get it to Ingram or Zion when he's healthy or CJ. I actually, And this kind of has like some historical significance. Clay going to Dallas. It's the end of a dynasty. The Golden State Warriors, as we knew them, as the Splash Brothers, the era has finally come to an end. Clay didn't get re-signed by Golden State, ended up signing with the Mavericks, and I think it's a really good situation for him. It's a fresh start for him, and he gets to play in a system that's kind of up-tempo, fast-paced, where all he's literally going to be asked to do is get to his spots and let that thing go. And between Kyrie and Luka both feeding him the rock, I think that's definitely going to be a spot where he's going to flourish. And there was another one that I thought was a really good pickup. Can't really think about it right now. And then again, I think the Kings getting who they got.
DeRozan.
Yeah, DeRozan was kind of like a huge pickup there. Because people forget that Sacramento was a number 1 seed 2 seasons ago. Like, They have a lot of talent offensively. The thing is like they needed that guy who, when the game kind of breaks down into like the half court, someone that can get a bucket, and that's DeRozan's whole game. Um, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of like not nervous, but I'm intrigued to see what the Sixers roster can actually do, because they did make probably some of the most significant moves in free agency, bringing in PG, getting Drummond. You mentioned Sean, Eric Gordon to replace Buddy Hield. Um, they're basically retooling and saying, hey, look, we almost did a lot with with half of Embiid on one leg and Tyrese, an emerging Tyrese Maxey. So now we get year 2 of Maxey taking another step, and we're just bringing in pieces to kind of complement Joel. Yeah, they're going to be tough. It's almost like everybody is kind of like going for the Celtics model of team construction. It's like we got our 1, we got our 2. Now we're just gonna put a bunch of like solid role players around them, and that's how we're gonna construct. We're not gonna out overreach and try to get as many superstars on one team. I think the days of super teams is kind of like dwindling. It's now more about like overall roster construction and not just top end talent. So it's nice to see like a lot of guys, a lot of movement, a lot of player movement, a lot of guys that like were on the West Coast moving to East and vice versa. So, but yeah, those are some like notable things that like stuck out to me. Cool. Where do you think, not to get too far off of free agency talk, where do you think we now, the Knicks, rank in the Eastern Conference? And what do you think the Eastern Conference is going to look like next season? We mentioned a lot of teams: Sixers, Orlando, Pacers. Like they're all there. Where do you think we shake out?
I think the top 4 teams are definitely solidified. In whatever order, I think we rank second, but whatever order: Celtics, Knicks, Sixers, Bucks, and then after that,
Still Bucks number 4.
yeah, 100%.
Huh.
I still think so. Because you're gonna have a healthy Giannis, and you're gonna have a healthy. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now.
Middleton,
Brain fart.
Game.
Dame.
Dame. I'm sorry. Dame. Dame time. Yeah, I think they didn't lose anything, and they're bringing back. Yeah, I think they're still a solid team in the East. But I think then after that, it's like Magic. I think they're going to be a tough team. They might break the top 4. They replace them with the Bucks if possible.
The Pacers,
Yeah,
Pacers not even in top 5.
Oh, Pacers.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm from-
Pacers, yeah.
Stuff up top. Top 4 are all like right there.
I forgot about the Pacers.
Top 5 even. If you throw in the Bucks there, which I'm going to throw Bucks at 5, I think it's Celtics, Knicks,
Sixers.
Pacers. I think. Yeah.
Okay, I agree. Yeah, I totally forgot the Pacers. My bad. Yeah, I'd probably say in top 5. Either way, you got the top 5, then you got the 6. You got the Magic. The Heat are gonna be. They're always good. They got a young team. This is Jimmy Butler needs to focus on playing basketball. And then the Bulls. I don't know what the Bulls end up doing. Like they get rid of DeRozan. They went and got Josh Giddey.
Caruso too. They're a little messy.
Yeah, after that it's like a fall off. Like I'm just looking at like you got the Hawks. Yeah.
None of you guys said Cleveland either.
Well, Spider can't do it by himself. No, they got the Twin Towers. They got Mobley and
Mobley
big on the
and Allen, and then
Yeah.
Garland is still is all-star, teetering all-star. So they got the problem with Cleveland is like they It's a lot of like what I just kind of was alluding to is like, all right, we got a very top end heavy part of our roster, and then our bench is just like doo doo. Like we don't have enough coming off the bench. When those guys come out, and to your point, Spider can't do it all by himself. So like, where do they get like that extra punch? To compete with some of
New head
the higher
coach,
teams.
new coaching staff,
Yeah,
maybe different philosophy. I don't know.
they actually
They got a
signed.
good
They
starters.
actually
They got a good
signed
starter.
one of the Knicks assistant coaches as their head coach now. So
Yeah.
shout out to them. But yeah, I think I agree with like the top four kind of being there. I actually think it's gonna kind of, I don't know, throughout the season, the 4, 5, and 6 are all kind of gonna like flip flop. So it's like Milwaukee, Indiana, and Orlando, as far as like where any of those teams could potentially fall, but definitely the top three, as far as like Celtics, Knicks, and Sixers are all right there. And then the bottom half is up for grabs. But I mean, that's even like, when was the last time you said the East had like a solid 6 teams that were all like, oh, these are all good. It's been a while. The East has definitely been like the weakest conference in recent memory, but I think we're super solid right now.
Well, it's not the West. West, playoff team.
The West has been a dogfight ever for the last like 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, the West is tough. It's scary, especially with the top teams like really making some like key moves with the Kings and the Thunder.
What do you think
NBA season's gonna be crazy.
what do you think the Western Conference looks like, rank wise?
Thunder, Kings, Wolves.
You think Denver takes a step back out the top 4?
I think Denver's still up there.
Yeah, Denver's still up there, but who's replacing the output of Caldwell Pope?
That's true.
That's a big piece. I saw rumors of I don't know if it's true or not, but I saw they wanted to go trade for Russell Westbrook. Jokic was like, I want Russell Westbrook, but yeah, like, what are you going to replace that output with? Like a starting 3 guy that can play defense, can shoot.
I wouldn't put Jamal Murray and Westbrook together. That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Unless they think Christian Braun is capable of a lot more he's been showing. He's a pretty solid role player, but I don't think that he's Caldwell Pope nearly. I think their roster needs a couple more pieces.
I mean, that might be why they were fine with like letting Caldwell Pope go, is because they had that future upside.
Reggie Jackson can score the basketball when given an opportunity, but it's a little streaky.
Now you asking what the top 4 teams? I'd probably say Thunder, Wolves, Nuggets. Thunder, Wolves, Nuggets, Kings. Top 4 teams.
So you don't got Dallas in the top 4.
I think they're in that like we said in the East, like that they could be 4, but they could also be 6, like 4, 5, 6, like those. Because then you got the Suns
as well.
You got the Clippers. You don't know what the Clippers are going to look like. Is Kawhi going to play? They lose PG. Who's going to replace that output with PG leaving? So like 4, 5, 6 could be Mavericks, Clippers, Suns. And you got the Pelicans. Like I said, I like Murray going to the Pelicans.
I honestly think that like the West outside of like the top 4 teams is not as strong as it used to be. You named a lot of teams that have a lot of guys that were good 5-10 years ago that like are now aging out. So like we're talking about Kawhi, who hasn't been able to stay healthy. a James Harden who's kind of old, a Westbrook who's old. We look on the Suns. KD is still there, but he's getting up there too. Like, and they've all like not underperformed the last few seasons. When they were supposed to be like super teams. We're not talking about the Lakers.
The West is tough.
I don't think the West is as tough as it once was. Outside of Minnesota, Oklahoma City, Denver, I'm not really like shook of any Western team whatsoever. Yeah, they'll beat up on each other, but like the days of having Dame Lillard in the West and like all these other teams being like super good, like the Pelicans, Zion has had one full season where he hasn't like been injured like half the season. Like the Clippers basically just blew up their squad with PG leaving. All their other pieces are older. Like, convince me that the West is like significantly like dominant like it once was. Powerhouse teams like from old aren't there. The Spurs are still rebuilding. Like, how are you scared of the Western Conference?
I will say that all the teams 1 through 9 have two basically bona fide superstars that could like take over a game and win any game. Steph Curry's out here, the Kings, the Pels, the Lakers, the Suns.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. I think they have a lot of players that are stars in like name recognition. Like they're good. They're still good players, but like they're not like Tatum level good. They're not like Giannis level good. They're not like Brunson level good. Like they're not 1A superstars. They might be like B superstars, if that makes any sense. Like yeah.
You're also forgetting about the Grizzlies. Like John Morant's going to be he's going to be playing next season.
He's going to come back. He's going to come
back,
but we've also seen. But look, we also saw with the Grizzlies outside of John Morant, that's it. Like if he goes down for any reason, they're butt cheeks. Like they're barely a playing team.
That's like any team that's not in the top 5 or 6 in their conference. If they lose their best player, they are going to be trash. That's just natural. But looking at the West, to Pat's point, like 1 through 10 have the potential to be playoff teams. Like the Warriors were the 10 seed and they won 46 games. Mm-hmm. And then after that, the Rockets. We don't know what that's good. That's a young team that could be a problem.
Again,
the Jazz haven't made any moves.
We're talking about teams' potentials. Like yes, the Warriors. They thought they would be in full rebuild mode, and then Kuminga ended up being good, and they, won a title 2 seasons ago, or 3 seasons ago. That they're kind of like ahead of schedule, but Steph is a year older, Draymond's a year older. Okay, I'm not like, yes, they can compete still because you still have 2 of those players, but. Are you as scared of the Warriors as when they were like, we're talking like 2019, 2020? Like, no, we're not at all. And, you mentioned the Rockets. Rockets are still like not there yet, but, they could do something. Jazz had a step back. Like, again, none of these teams like really.
The bar too high. I think you're setting the bar too high here. We're talking about the entire conference being scary. We just talked about the Eastern Conference. After 8, there's a drop-off, right? Mm-hmm. We can all agree on that because after 8, it's the Bulls, Hawks, Nets, Raptors, Hornets, Wizards, Pistons, all trash teams.
Yeah, all trash.
Okay, now you go to the West. We're talking about all 10 teams are playoff teams. I'm not saying that the Warriors are going to be the Thunder or the Nuggets. That's why I say I think you're putting the bar too high here in the sense of like you got 10 good teams.
So let me try and like make a better point here. So what I'm saying is like, the floor of the Western Conference might be better. Like the 11th, 10th team in the Western Conference might be like not garbage like the Pistons, but the outside of like the top 4 teams in the Western Conference, the rest of them are kind of just all like very similar. They're like kind of B-level teams versus like the top 8, 1 through 8 in the Eastern Conference are all solid teams that could potentially beat up on the West, is what I'm saying. So like the ceiling of the Eastern Conference is higher than the Western Conference.
I don't know, man.
That's just where where I am at.
I think we're underestimating the lower tier teams in the West. I know we're calling them lower tier teams because they're not in the top, 6, whatever. But the Warriors are. I don't care how old you think that Steph Curry is. Steph Curry is a top tier player in the NBA.
Yeah. He's still
just drop off. He's not just going to disappear.
No, he's not. He's still a top, I'd say 25 player in the NBA.
John, and then just looking, we're going to focus on the Warriors because you're not going to sit here and trash the Warriors. The Warriors can.
I'm not trashing the Warriors.
The Warriors have and move them over to the East, and I guarantee you they'd be
a lot of the smoke that I have for the Warriors is because of Draymond and what he's been saying about the Knicks. But outside of that, take my bias out of it. I'm looking at a team that is kind of like capped out. They don't have a lot of draft capital to like make moves, and they just let go one of their best players of all time, just so they can like kind of
doing anything. He wasn't
doing anything, which is fine. It was going to happen at some point anyway. But they're like outside of Clay and Draymond and maybe Kuminga, what are the Warriors like doing? And Draymond ain't even really like that.
Take your body. Stop talking about Draymond. Think about the roster that they have today. They have a young roster around Steph Curry, one of the greatest shooter of all time. Kuminga is going to ball next season. Podziemski, have y'all seen him play last season? He's a baller. And then they still have Andrew Wiggins. And then now you let Clay go. And again, Clay wasn't Clay last year. You bring in Buddy Hield, and I don't care. He may have had a bad season on the Sixers. I think they just didn't use him well. You saw that against us where he just came in and lit us up. Because
20 points in one half.
And then guess what? They helped us by sitting him the rest of that game. But now you put him on the Warriors team that is built around players shooting the three. You mean to tell me he's not going to come in and do what he needs to do on top of what they had? On top of being a 46-win team? That's all I'm saying is the potential of the teams. The Sacramento Kings were a 9 seed, and they just added DeMar DeRozan. Mm-hmm. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying 1 through 10 is tough, and then we're not even talking about John Morant is an impact player, and like you said, you lose that impact player, they're trash. You add that impact player back in, they're not going to be. They're winning more than 27 games. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying that the West is deep compared to the East. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, and I'm not trying to compare the lower teams to like the Nuggets and the Wolves.
I'm not disagreeing that. That's why I said the floor in the West is very high. Like the 12th team in the Western Conference is giving work to most of the Eastern Conference. But what I'm saying is the playoff caliber teams in the East, 1 through 8, are all better, or most of them are better than what's in the Western Conference. That's what I'm saying.
That's what we're disagreeing.
Okay, then that's just where we're going to disagree, because I just think the East, when we're talking about the playoff teams in the East, they have stronger playoff teams in the East than in the West.
Oh, no. Okay. Remember, 10 teams. Pat, I want you to chime in here because I know we've been going back and forth. But the last point I'm going to make is 10 teams make the playoffs. 10 teams make the playoffs. Last season, the Bulls and the Hawks made the playoffs. They're both bad teams. In the East, they're both bad teams. And then the fall off after that is atrocious. You have the Brooklyn Nets 32-50. Now, you go and just look at the West last season. The 9 seed and 10 seed teams are good team. Again, the Kings were a 9 seed, and you said it earlier. 2 years ago, they were the number 1 seed with the same roster, but now you add DeMar DeRozan. I just don't. The depth of the Western Conference is better than the East.
Listen, this is an ad hoc feast or fumble topic right here because we just kind of stumbled upon this. Pat, voice of reason. What
Voice of reason?
All right. So listen, Kyle Anderson is also on the Golden State Warriors, and he's going to be super underrated. He's going to be a good player for them. He's going to shoot a lot of threes, make a lot of buckets. So 1 through 5, it's give or take. It's equal, let's say. Eastern Conference, Western Conference, both disgustingly good, high-end talent. These should be the top teams competing for the championship. Once you get to that 6 through 10, 6 through 11 level, unfortunately, the Western Conference, in my opinion, is much stronger than the Eastern Conference just because of the fact that they have, that superstar talent on so many different teams down the bottom of the seedings in the Western Conference. And like I said, I think they could take over almost any game and win that game. Sabonis and Fox, Steph Curry, the Pelicans with their superstars. The Lakers have AD and LeBron James, and they're not even considered a top 5 team. So it's just like any given night, I feel like these teams will just absolutely beat the crap out of each other, whereas the top talent in the Eastern Conference has a little bit more, I guess, of an advantage to win games because of the differentiation in talent in the Eastern Conference. And that's my opinion. So I'm feasting that the the Western Conference is deeper than the Eastern Conference.
Here we go.
And again, I know you're trying to say I'm throwing some ifs in there or potentials, but like the Houston Rockets were a young team and they were 41-41 in the West. They're not going backwards. Like Jalen Green is going to be a superstar in the NBA. And we just saw one season of them, and they won 41 games with a new coach.
Because they got the right coach. Because
Exactly.
Udoka is a hell of a coach, and Boston, basically let him go for nothing. But yeah.
Wow.
Well, not for nothing. Not for nothing. But not for nothing. But that just goes to show you how well constructed of an organization the Boston Celtics are, that they got rid of a head coach that brought them to a finals and replaced him with an assistant who then won them an NBA championship.
Well, they got an amazing GM, just FYI.
Yeah, Brad Stevens, no joke. We got a little sweaty there. We got a little sweaty.
We got a little spicy there because the Houston Rockets can be an 8 seed in the East, and they were 11 seed. That's it. Just take that.
Listen,
that one team.
Listen, if I was gonna play, magical commissioner for a day and be Adam Silver, what I would do, and this has been going around online, and I thought it was a good idea. Bring Memphis, bring the Pelicans, bring them to the Eastern Conference. Give Las Vegas a team, and bring back the Supersonics to balance out the West, and that'll be 4 more teams or 2 more teams in the league, and kind of add a little more parity to the league. Because there's no reason why Memphis or New Orleans should be playing in the Western Conference.
Yeah, agreed. It's interesting how that happens over time with sports. How just the teams move cross country and all of a sudden they're in the wrong conference.
See, and that would fix the problem that you just alluded to, Sean, because now Memphis is a playoff team and New Orleans is a playoff team in the East, and that gets rid of, Chicago and Atlanta. So now there's parity.
And even moving those 2 teams, they still have 10 playoff teams in the West. That's all I'm saying. They literally got 12 playoff teams in the West. East has 8.
Solid 8. A solid.
You're solid 8. You did perfectly fine. Solid 8. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the West is deep. It's scary over there. We just stay over here in the East.
All right. Fair. I like it. Anything else we want to touch on? I know we had this is an ad hoc episode, kind of just going off the cuff, wherever we feel like discussing after a holiday weekend. Top of brain, Pat, anything?
Not too much. Giants Hard Knocks just started. I don't know if you guys checked that out, but it's a little scary seeing the behind-the-scenes stuff when you know the Giants aren't going to have a good year. So I'm very, very interested to see what happens there. And, just basketball free agency, hockey free agency, but the big thing is football's in a few weeks, and I can't wait for that. What do you got, Sean?
For me, it's just Euros and Copa America happen right now. Some really good soccer. I was, watching Colombia dominate Panama yesterday, and I really think that Colombia's going to go on a run here. They're going to face Uruguay, and I think they could take care of Uruguay. I think it's going to come down to if they can beat Argentina, and then in the Euros, Spain is a really good young team, and they just been dominating teams, and I think they're going to pull it off. So I look forward to seeing those games this week and seeing where the puzzle pieces land. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about it.
Speaking of, we have one of our favorite segments outside of Feast or Fumble. We got our best bets. Patty, what do we got this week?
I do have one for you guys today. So I will admit, been running a little cold, so I'm trying to really focus on one single bet a day. Just a disclaimer, try to remember to do that. If you're running cold, don't bet for a day or two. See if it'll try to change your record a little bit. But today, you want to be betting the San Diego Padres money line. Dylan Cease is on the mound. He is one of the best pitchers in baseball. He struggled last start in Texas, but at home, he is a much, much better pitcher. At home this season, 46 innings pitched, 38 hits, 62 strikeouts, though. So I will be hammering Dylan Cease and the San Diego Padres to win at home today.
I like it. All right, final thoughts, gentlemen. Mr. Chino, what do you got?
I think Yankees get back on track and win a series tonight. Ben Rice, huge day yesterday. 3 salamis. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that tonight. Sunday Night Baseball. That's all I got.
Patty?
Yep, that's it, man. Yankees got to get it turned around. Poor Anthony Rizzo. You better get your ass back on the field because Ben Rice seems like the real deal. He's playing well. I can't wait to see him continue to play. Just need to see the Yanks turn it around. Really well.
Job taken. Rizzo. See you later, man. Nice knowing you.
Let's go, Yanks. What do you got, Chris?
Yeah, I'm trying to find someplace cold to have a beverage and watch some baseball. I think that's going to be my game plan for the rest of the weekend. So, it brings this episode to a close. As always, like, share, subscribe, boost us up in the algorithms. We greatly appreciate it. For Mr. Chino, Patty Putz, I am the real Kris Mac. This is Feast or Fumble, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.